Okay, YouTube. This is my 2008 Jeep Liberty, and I had gotten the Rockfather 2.5 inch budget lift kit. I've already installed it. I did have an issue I didn't notice until I drove it back to the house from the shop, and I had actually punctured the hole in my CV axle, that rubber boot there, and all the grease flung out. So I basically had to take everything back apart. Like when I put this lift kit in, you kind of see that spacer. I live in a salt state, so it's already rusted. It's only been on there for a few weeks now. We've been getting a lot of snow and salt on the roads to do that. But anyways, the one issue I ran into was putting everything back together once I got the spacer installed on the strut, was trying to get your bolt back in on the lower A-arm of your the strut fork. And I mean, it took me like 3 hours to try to get that thing back in there. Then when I did the other side, it took me about an hour. Once I had a little better idea, I had to use bottle jack and pry bars, busted knuckles. It was super, super tough. Even got a strut compressor. Those really dangerous tools that basically just grab the springs and compress them in to try to shorten them up. It really didn't seem to make that much of a difference. But anyways, so this all had to come back apart for me to be able to get this CV axle out. And what I noticed was when I had this nut threaded all the way off to where this could actually go back through the bearing, this your CV axle shaft, it allowed me to push this down a little bit farther, and I was able to push the whole A-arm system down. Of course, I had the upper control arm undone. I even took my tie rod end off, and sway bar has to come apart, or it has to come unbolted anyways. And so with this part being unthreaded to where this can go back through this bearing, you can push this thing down like another couple inches. And if you push this down and then kind of push back on your fork bar, you could slip that bolt right in without using any pry bars, and no bottle jacks, anything. It'll just slip right in, and it worked. It took me like 5 minutes to put this bolt back in once I had, the new CV axle installed. Of course, I didn't have this part threaded. It was just poking through just a little bit. I didn't take this all the way out. I just took this off with an impact and then was able to, let this drop down more by pushing on it. And this thing went right back in. So anyways, if you're going to replace or put this 2.5 inch lift on, which it probably goes for any brand because you're doing the same thing. If it's a 2.5 inch, you're gonna be just adding a spacer onto your strut just to give it a, lengthen it basically. So I think this probably goes for any lift kit for these 2008 Jeep Liberties. I mean, 2008 up to, I think, 12, I believe, is when they quit making these. So they're all the same, just a newer body style from the old ones from like 2002 to 2007. So if you're gonna do that, just unthread this, and you might have to whack it with a mallet just to get it to break loose from the splines. Shouldn't take much. I mean, I live in a salt state, so everything's worse as far as working on stuff. So yeah, just give that a try if you're gonna put these strut spacers in to give it a lift. And this bolt going back in will be 100 times easier. I mean, it'll save you so much hassle. The only really hard part is getting your stabilizer mount back in. Now, I have not figured out a way to put that back in easily without using pry bars and some cuss words. That's gonna be hard. So, I mean, I've tried, you know, undoing the shackle mounts or at least loosening them up on the sway bar. It doesn't really seem to make much of a difference, and you can do it, but I just loosen this up at the top of the sway bar here, or yeah, the sway bar mount, and that kind of helps, you know, for trying to get it lined back up and get your bolt back through. So if this helps, you know, just give it a like. I think it'll really help anybody out that's going to put a lift kit on their Jeep Liberty. So good luck.